Really excited to have with us Annie Schmitt. She is the 2024 DevLearn Student DemoFest winner. She did a great project, and I wanted to have her here today to talk about how she put that together, what kind of decisions did she make, and why was it so attractive to all the folks that obviously thought she did a great job. So, Annie, fantastic to have you. Thanks for coming.
So happy to be here. Thanks, Dr. Cobb.
Great. So before we get too much into your project, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what you do, and your experience in the program here at Bloomsburg, or now Commonwealth?
Yeah, so I have one more class to finish up the master's in instructional design, and I have earned the e-learning development certificate already. And my background before was in STEM curriculum development, teaching, art, but all in the K to 12 student space. So going through the programs really helped me transition to L&D adult learning. And DemoFest was a great chance to really get to apply everything I've learned so far and present it to a new audience in a field that I'm just getting started with.
Oh, fantastic. So before we actually get into your project, I just thought, what was it like walking into that room, setting up, and then all of a sudden having it flooded with different people? So what was that like?
It was super overwhelming, but in a good way. It's a huge space, it's kind of what you see on TV for the biggest possible tech conferences you can imagine. I've been to plenty of conferences before, but nothing quite that big. And everyone's really interested. They're asking questions, but they're also trying to see all of the other projects. So it's a rush and I lost my voice, definitely lost my voice, just not even from talking too loud, but just having to talk continuously for 3 hours. But it paid off because people heard me, so it was cool.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, it is. It's such a buzz of action and activity and lots of people. So you're there showing off your project. So can you now tell us a little bit about your project? Maybe show us a little bit. What's the background of it? Why did you choose that project? And how'd you go about developing it?
All right, so my project is called Hackyard, and we'll get into the storyline in a little bit. But basically, I was teaching teachers over Zoom in the summer as part of my instructional design internship how to build circuits. So it's kind of a train the trainer where they're going to then teach their students how to build circuits. And they had the circuits, on the table in front of them. And then we're on Zoom and we're like putting the cameras down as close as you can get to say, oh, do this here, do this here. But there was still that element missing of things are really small, it's highly technical. They might have missed the training or they need to do it later, where it really felt like it was an opportunity to do an e-learning where we could really dig in. And a lot of times they still miss some fundamentals because they weren't seeing inside the breadboard. So the goal was really to introduce the components of circuits to beginners. And it could be educators, but it could be, I think I had an electrical engineer at DemoFest who said he really wished he had had the training and he was sharing it with his buddies.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
just for beginners to really lay that foundation that this would be perfect to do right immediately before you then go physically build circuits. So my project was created in Storyline 360 primarily. I did drop in some videos created in Beyond, which is an animation tool. And I can also show you real quick because some that people were asking about, a tool is called Icograms. And it is an illustration tool for, oh, what's it called? Not the hex, isometric
Interesting.
drawings.
Yeah.
So I use that for my illustration. So I didn't have to quite start everything from scratch, but I also didn't have stock illustrations. And I really pulled from all my classes of and your classes in game design that story is really important. And then just building little bits and chunking that information for the learner over time. And then the simulation part just gives you that immediate feedback, kind of that dopamine hit of cha-ching, we got it right. So those were some of the elements that I
Oh,
used.
fantastic. Yeah, sounds interesting.
All right. So we'll skip the navigation tutorial, but the basic story is that it's a mother and her son, and she wants to get him, off screens of just watching things and into creating something with technology. So they're deciding to hack their backyard and make things with circuits like a wildlife camera or a temperature sensor for their tomato plants. And you kind of go through that story, and as they're learning, then you are also learning. So they decide they're going to use a Raspberry Pi, and I have, real images of Raspberry Pi so that you're using the same thing if you're going to transfer that knowledge to the real thing after. So we'll kind of skip through a little bit with the story. And I have a custom menu, which that was fun to build throughout. All right. Then we get into our mission briefing and what we're actually going to do. And basically, the way I set it up was to have 1 to 2 minute explainer videos right before integrating a new component. So the first one is the breadboard, and then there's little videos later when an LED light's introduced and things like that. So I can play just a couple seconds here at the beginning of the video.
Hey friends, Zoe here. The question most asked on the Discord this week is, what is a breadboard? These are pretty handy if you're learning circuits or making a new electronics project. So let's get right into it.
So this was created in Viant with custom SVGs, and this is kind of where it really looks at the internal parts of a breadboard. And this is, like I was saying, just the not quite microscopic, but really small things that are hard to explain even in-person training, but also over Zoom. So this is where, using the illustrations and e-learning really helped out. So then the learners would learn about the breadboard and the parts, and then the next step is to actually build a circuit. So there's our components that we're going to use, an LED, a resistor, and some jumper wires for the first circuit, and then we zoom in. And now this was the meat of my storyline development time, was in the circuit simulator. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of layers. There's hints that pop up. There's reference layers that you can review the parts of a breadboard at any time. So that's, at the learner's fingertips throughout. So it basically takes the learners through, and this is kind of the tutorial level, right? And I didn't end up building more than this just for time's sake, but the next one would not give as much help. But the very first one, we're clicking on the power rail. And then if you click in the wrong place, go back here, Bagel the dog pops up. He's from the story to give you hints. So I have the power rail. And then the key part was really showing which part is now electrically connected with the green rectangles there. And that keeps building as we go. There's an example of a hint coming up. Should play a sound here. I'm not sure. I think because I muted the video, maybe. But this part of the project would be good to show a little bit of the storyline background.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is where you put all the instruction, and then basically the person is simulating using the board as they would just in the classroom.
That's right, except the board doesn't give you that feedback, and here we have the opportunity to give it. And there are circuit simulators that exist, but they're just much more advanced than this. So the idea here was to fill that gap for a beginner, where later on you could go use a software that's specifically designed as a circuit simulator. But this is a good start.
Yeah, fantastic. So this gives you the basics as you go in there, and I really like the idea that if you're doing a Zoom, it's hard to explain this with a PowerPoint and a slide, and here the students can just go do it themselves. Now, do you view them doing this before you jump on the Zoom, or while you're on the Zoom, or what were your thoughts on that?
I think it would be perfect before, because there'd still be questions after, and this is the most basic circuit where you're just lighting up one LED, because it's going to get more complicated from there. But at least they should be able to envision in their mind when they're done which rows and parts of the board are connected, which is what you need to be able to do to build a working circuit.
Once this is done, then what's the next step for the learner? Just to kind of go through the whole thing?
In the project here?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we can skip to the end of this circuit. So after they've placed all of the components correctly, then you get to do what you would actually do, which is run your code that actually turns on the Raspberry Pi. So we don't get into the code here too much, but I do have the actual code that you would use in Python with Python so that learners can start just kind of familiarizing themselves with it, but it shows you the direction of the electricity. So that was a fun moment for people that tested it out.
Yeah,
Um,
neat.
Even more so than I expected, but building it on the back end, but that was kind of like the wow moment when you get to run the code and see it work. So
Yeah, very impressive. So I can see why you won. I mean, it's a great project. It has a story, has kind of a challenge, has a real life application. So very impressive.
thank you. And then, so the idea would be I could build more complicated circuits, and it kind of goes back to the story in between each circuit. So there's a motivation from the story of what you're trying to build and why. And this is an example of the illustrations from Icogram. So I did edit them in Illustrator as well. I actually paid for a month so that
Mhm.
I would actually own the drawings, which was a nice feature.
Uh,
But you can see the style of it here. It's really good if you are trying to teach anything with buildings. They have a lot of buildings, like industry. You can build a small town, you can build rooms, and then customize everything and label it. So it was a handy find.
Saved a lot of work.
Saved a lot of work. It was still a lot of a lot of work just doing everything for this project. And someone actually had an interesting comment that in an instructional design world, they weren't sure that it would be very difficult to have a different instructional designer from eLearning developer. So if it was a team working together, trying to explain what you want the developer to develop on the breadboard, because it is so specific of where it has to go. It worked well because I was both of those roles, so I knew what needed to be done. But actually thinking about how you'd break it out on a team for this project, which was interesting, something I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, you'd have to basically draw everything almost exactly like your screen capture and have them put that on there. That would be
Right. And then at that point, most of the
right.
work's
Might as well
already
do it
done.
yourself. Right.
So, yeah. And I can just show briefly in Storyline a little
Yes.
bit of the
Yeah.
back end.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and check out the back end and see how you develop some of it.
Oh, so there's my story view. It's pretty linear. It doesn't have a lot of branching or anything like that. But just as one example, once you're in the simulator, most things are done by layers. So this one was pretty complicated because it has a video tip. So there's a video layer that would play the video with the close button on there. And then each step of the simulation has its own layer. So the first step is to flip the LED, then to click on the power rail. You can see all the states having to be changed from hidden to um, not. And then hotspots are the green boxes here. So it's trying to track where the learner's clicking. Are they clicking in the correct place or the incorrect place? Because you get feedback either way there. But this is why just going through one circuit build, each step had this many layers. So that was
How
where
did
I
you keep
spent.
track of all those layers? Did you just within the software itself, or did you have a little notepad or?
I had just a really detailed bulleted outline. I didn't storyboard in terms of graphics what it would be. But I started backwards as well of what the final circuit would look like. And then I copied and pasted, like deleted one part and then copied and pasted it backwards so that everything was in the exact right spot. So a lot of duplication and then naming things well, using good naming conventions inside of Storyline.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
smart. So you had a finished drawing of what you want the circuit board to look like, and then each time you took it and you removed something and kept going backwards, kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, what a great idea.
Yeah.
That way you knew you would be right and you wouldn't miss a step.
Right, right. And spatially, it was in the right XY coordinates on the screen in Storyline too. Yeah.
Mhm. so you wouldn't have to move anything back and forth. Did you have any particularly struggles or anything that you kind of discovered and said, aha, this was pretty clever of me to figure this out?
Very self-congratulatory. I think I leaned on master slides a lot more this time.
Uh,
So the menu layer is on a master slide. So then I didn't have to worry about putting that on each one. If I changed it, I only did change it once. The status bar, progress bar was also on master slides. Um, so that really helped clean things up. But I think really the struggle was figuring out what the process should be. So it was a lot of the struggle was a lot on the front end of what kind of images do I want to use and where am I going to get them? And then what's my, flow for editing things, for putting the pieces of the circuit together because I needed images of all the parts separately. So there was a lot of thinking through in that really in the front end. And then the individual development problems weren't as bad because you can usually just do a search and find an articulate forum or someone else has already solved that part. So it was really just figuring out what the workflow needed to be from icograms to Illustrator to SVGs to Storyline.
yeah,
And
interesting. So a lot
yeah.
of time up front in the design of it, and then that made the development much more smooth. So how long have you been working on it? And before you actually showed it off at DemoFest?
Really crunched it into probably 6 to 8 weeks was the main part. I'd been thinking about it for probably 6 to 8 months. But I roughly tracked my time at about 180 hours that I spent on everything. So from writing to the videos. And the videos I did do as part of multimedia class for the program. So having some of the pieces be for assignments helped as
Yeah,
well.
that is
Yeah.
clever. So you knew that you were going to be doing this. So you're like, okay, well, in class, I'm just going to go ahead and use the assignments as elements in my finished project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that it really helped, yeah.
Oh, very
And
nice.
I got feedback that way I got feedback on those parts of it too. So I
Ah,
had
yeah,
a forum for that.
yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
That's a great way to iteratively design that and get that information. So, talking about the program, so you're in the Instructional Design and Technology program at Commonwealth University. So, can you tell me a little bit about that program, how you found that program, what attracted it to you, and then what types of things that you learned during the program?
Yeah, I know I found the program online. Like a lot of people, I didn't know what instructional design was for until maybe a couple years before I applied for the program. I had
Uh,
my eye on it for a while, and it was some of the online information sessions similar to these that really convinced me, because the program does have so many professional learning opportunities where you're working with organizations and clients, you're working in teams with your peers, you're getting hands-on with the tools. So we're getting the tool and software side, but also the theory side. So it seemed very practical, and I love that instructional design applies to any field that you want to work in. So I'm somebody that likes to switch it up every couple years. So I'm excited to be able to, keep exploring new fields and organizations.
yeah, that's fantastic. And also, I think you had mentioned at DevLearn and DemoFest, actually, some opportunities came to you.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm I'm working for a few people that either saw me on the webinar after DemoFest or saw me present at DemoFest directly. So right after the webinar, the same day or the next day, I had three different organizations that do instructional design or e-learning development reach out. And so I am currently writing storyboards that are very detailed for video video production where they film on site to teach welders how to weld and fabricate, which is a whole, I didn't know anything about welding, but I think they saw from this project the being able to apply the technical knowledge and break it down. And so I'm doing just instructional design writing for that gig. And then I also am now doing some storyline development for another client, and it was similar, but the other side that they saw from this project that I could do something really detailed in storyline and had a good grasp of the tool. So for that, I'm just doing pure storyline development. So I'm really getting to try out both sides, right? A lot at bigger organizations, you might just be an eLearning developer or just a writer, and I'm doing both, and it's really cool that I get the opportunity to try both sides.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic that you do get to do both. That's kind of a lot of fun. Not everybody gets to do that, so that's kind of nice. So, as you are in the field, so do you have a portfolio that you created while you were in grad school, or how did you kind of show, besides DemoFest, the types of projects that you could do?
Yeah, I do have a portfolio. It's my website, annieschmitt.com. It's a work in progress, but I feel like I have enough up there. But it's from the program, we always have something to take away from every class that can be on that portfolio. And going to DemoFest, honestly, was my motivation to have my portfolio ready because I had been dragging my feet on it for a while. Um, and yeah, so just it's a WordPress website and it's pretty simple for me to update. So that's working out for me for my portfolio.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, what advice or counsel would you give to someone who is thinking about, hey, I might want to go to grad school. I'm not sure if instructional design or Commonwealth is right for me. How do I make that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say definitely go to some of the information sessions where you can talk to more current and former students, talk to the professors, ask questions. And, there's the certificate programs too. So you don't have to go for the full master's initially. You could get a four or five class certificate, and that builds on it as well. But if you like to solve problems, if you're creative, if you like to teach people things, I mean, you don't have to have any particular background to do instructional design, but it's a really creative field. And in the program too, we get to use those real world problems, but every class lets you bring yourself to it. So it's really cool to see all of my peers, and everyone does completely different types of projects, completely different subjects. So you can really make it what you want as well. And it's a really, really nice combination of those.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So do you have like a favorite project that you did or favorite thing that you worked on while you were there?
Ooh, I'm trying to remember. I did like making the videos in Beyond. I kind of got down to a long Beyond kick after learning that tool. So it's an animation tool that I had the breadboard videos in, and it just got really fun to learn how to, generate the best possible AI voices. They're still not as good as real human voices, but a lot of places use them because it's more inexpensive. So, but beyond, it was really fun to kind of use the storytelling, timing. So, the projects that we get to do storytelling, super fun.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Any final words of wisdom or thoughts to anyone who is entering the field of instructional design in general, and what's next for you?
Ooh, both good questions. I think for instructional design, what I've been focusing on is to build my network. And networking was something that I always like, ooh, I don't really like that word. It doesn't feel authentic to me to go like schmooze with people, but it doesn't have to be like that, right? So I just kind of have big goals of I want to meet virtually or in person if possible with someone in instructional design once or twice a month. And I've kept that up with, reaching out to other people in our program or just asking people on LinkedIn. So just finding those ways to connect. I'm not a huge LinkedIn poster, but I'm working on that to find some ID communities that I want to be involved in. There's a lot. There's eLearning Heroes, there's Tim Slade, there's a whole bunch. So just kind of finding those areas I'm interested in connecting with people. It doesn't have to be on Facebook. It can be in like a smaller area where you're networking and just getting your work out there, getting feedback, seeing what other people are up to. So that's really helped drive me forward, especially from being in a remote program where you don't all, it's a little bit more work to reach out and have connections when you're not in class. Like during class time, it's great. I get to, talk to people and have those connections. But after, I want to make sure that I still have that. So I've also joined my closest ATD chapter, which is the Buffalo Niagara chapter. And I'm
Okay.
joining a mentorship program that they have. So I'm excited for that as well. So
Yeah,
that's one
that's
of the things
fantastic.
that's next for me. I graduate in May, and I'm really just taking this time to think about how I like the work I'm doing now, and do I want to continue contracting and freelance because I have kind of 4 or 5 clients slash like very close potential leads, or do I start applying for a full-time ID job? So
Ah, good
it's
problem to
nice to
have,
have
right?
both options. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And you're talking about network. Also reminded me of something that you said. I think about going to DevLearn was your chance to meet some of the authors. You had mentioned,
mhm.
Tim and some other people there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my favorite session was Julie Dirksen. So what is her main book called that I have it on my shelf, but I can't remember. Design for How People Learn. So her session was about skill acquisition, which is more what is the practice that you do later than the initial training. So that was a really, really interesting session that she led. And I think her next book is including some of that. So yeah, just really cool to be able to ask questions in person to an author that I reference a lot.
Yeah, that's a neat feeling. Very neat. So I guess the last question then was to think about advice that you would give to someone entering the field and what things that they should think about and pursue.
Yeah, I think you could start thinking about where you want to take instructional design. Do you want to do corporate? Do you want to do higher education? Because they are different ball games. A lot of people come from teaching, and there's still a lot of instructional design. My internship was basically still a K to 12 organization helping to train teachers. So there's still a lot of K to 12 and ed tech companies that you can work for if you want to still keep that connection to youth. And so think about that. You definitely don't have to commit and you can explore. And some people jump from one to another. Um,
Well, that's pretty good. Yeah, yeah. To keep an open mind. Um, so glad that once again, congratulations on DemoFest.
thank you.
Always, we have, take 8 6 students, and there's other people there. And this year it wasn't even the student award; it was the academic award. So they actually broadened it to some people that actually worked at universities. So, congratulations,
Thank
nice
you.
job, and really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.